Hey everyone, TimaeuSS here. Welcome to another Artery Gear video. So, I've read your comments about my audio. Hopefully this time the mic is a lot better and you can hear me clearly. And here we are for the global full release of Artery Gear. And I've done a tier list for the Japanese game when it launched in Japan. Of course, I'm going to do the same for global. And all of this, the information are from arterygear.info, and I'm part of the guide writing team on there, so you can see that you can access this freely and read about the analysis that I've made for each character. However, if you're a subscriber to my channel and you like hearing my voice, then here I am giving you a quick rundown on all of the SS as well as the S tier units for PvE and PvP. Do note that this is based on the initial global launch environment, so the ratings will be changing as we get more units and stuff like unique equipments. And of course, mostly they are of my own opinion. Some people might disagree. Of course, you can always contact me on Discord. So let's take a look at the PvE list first. Starting off with the SS tier, Sirius. So Sirius is an insane unit in the sense that her skill cycles are just extremely synergistic with herself. She opens with an S2, and if she crits, she gets a speed buff and also an extra turn. Oh, sorry, I'm going to clarify that the speed buff is granted regardless, but if she crits, she gets an extra turn. And then her S3 allows her to always attack with an advantageous element. So there's no 50% miss chance when she's attacking a fire type unit with S3. And it's also speed scaling as well. So when you open with S2, you get your own speed buff. You open next with S3, it's going to be very, very high damage. And then of course she has a 1-turn downtime where she uses her first skill. And it also causes defense down for 2 rounds when she has the speed buff. And because she gets speed buff for 2 rounds from her S2, she essentially will open S2 into S3 in 1 turn, and then next turn she'll apply the defense down with her speed buff. And this is why she is so strong. With her S2, S3 opening, she is able to pretty much kill any non-fire unit, and a lot of the good units, tanky units, are non-fire to start with. And for bosses, her skill cycles are just extremely potent in terms of taking down units down, taking bosses down due to the speed buff and the defense down. And that's why we have a Sirius at SS. Next, we have Ginga. So Ginga, in terms of her PvE rating, I was a bit hesitant to put her at SS just because she is locked to Centaur or PvE duty for most of the time. And outside of boss fights, she isn't really that great. However, she has one of the highest single target boss damage output just because of how S2 and S3 works. Basically, the more debuff the enemy has, the more damage it's going to do, and each debuff providing a 20% damage bonus. So you can see that her second skill stacks about 3 shocks, and then that's already 6%. If you have defense down, that's 80%, and it quickly stacks up to see to show you how strong Ginga can get for single target. And this is why we recommend her for the infinite rerolls. It's just because she is going to make your gear farming journey a lot easier. After that, we have Alice, the other reroll target that we recommend along with Cyrus on the normal banners, because Alice you cannot obtain from the infinite rerolls. So Alice is broken in the sense of the extra turn push doesn't reset the action bar position of the unit. And what that means is Alice will usually go first because you can build speed on her, push another unit, that unit will take the extra turn with the attack buff, and then take another turn while everyone has only moved once or haven't even moved at all. And because it's only on a 3-turn cooldown after you upgrade it, you cycle very, very fast. And if you pair Alice with someone like Sirius, basically Sirius has no downtime because you open S2 into S3 and you have the attack buff with the speed buff in the S2 and the S3, and then you go again with the S1 because it's still your turn. Because the extra turn granted to Cyrus essentially turn into 2 turns because the S2, S3 cycle. So she duplicates your damage dealer and also applies the damage buff, attack buff, and that's why Alice is so potent. And you can use her with other supports like Morris, which I'll talk about, to make things even more interesting. Her third skill is an AoE that applies slow. It comes handy in PvE sometimes, not so much in PvP. But yes, just the single skill alone from S2 makes her extremely strong. And last but not least, for the SS tier, we have Morris. So Morris is a free 4-star unit that everyone will get on day 2. Honestly, she is the best PvE healer from launch to pretty much end game. She is just so good in terms of her S2 and S3 synergy, because her S2, when you cast it on someone, it doesn't have to be herself. At max level, she gets about 50% action bar push, which is insane. And she applies a heal over time, plus the cooldown of the skill of the target will also decrease by 1. So in PvE, Morris is your dedicated healer and tank, because you can just cast S2 you can cast S3, which is an AoE heal that cleanses everything for all the allies, and then S2 on yourself. And then because the cooldown is reduced, your S3 is up again. So the Morris cycle in PvE is open with S3, use S2, and then you can use S3 again, and then you can use S2 again. So she has 100% uptime on the heals. And in many occasions, you pair her up with Alice, and what you can do is you can cast S2 to a damage dealer or even on Alice, and then Alice can cast S2 earlier and push the damage dealer even sooner. This will come in handy in early Centaur hunt, where you actually used S2 on Ginga so that she cycles S2, S3, a quick S1, and then into S2, S3. So those are the 4 SS PvE units. So for the S tier, I'm not going to go into every single one of them in as greater detail as I did for the SS tier, because you can read the analysis that I've written for most of the units here, and of course the pros and cons as well. But Quinn, she's good in S tier because she provides an AoE team-wide speed and attack buff, which is very handy against PvE content. And later on, if you upgrade her tech nodes, she also grants herself a greater speed buff, so she can cycle very fast. Surreal, she is S tier because she is essentially a slightly weaker Ginga, but at the end game, when you have maxed out gears, she actually does comparable damage to Ginga, just because how fast she can cycle with the burns. So she's on a burn focused team, and later on there will be units that synergizes with burns, so Serial does get even better. And Grace is a 3-star that is definitely S tier in terms of PvE. I'll actually go into Grace because I recommend people rerolling for Grace quite a bit. The reason why she's so strong is because her passive, when maxed out, gives herself an innate 50% critical chance and critical resistance, and her stats, she also has built-in crit as well. So right off the bat, without any gears, I think she can hit 60 something crit chance. So the need for gearing for her is very low, so she'll almost always crit. And when she lands a critical strike, she also gives herself action bar push. And her S3 is AoE wide attack, and if you crit, you do more damage, and the skill is reset when you kill a target, which means that if you got enough damage, especially with the free 6-star gear set that you get, you can just keep AoE things down and it will just reset. And this is why she's so good for new players starting out, because you need someone to help you carry 3 fodders in event farming, and Grace is one of the earliest members that are able to do that with relative ease. Ooh, I think the order got messed up here. So we talk about these 3. So Ruri is next. Ruri is S ranked in PvE. She's essentially a cleaver with S3 ignoring elemental disadvantage, and S2 ignoring elemental disadvantage, and S3 gaining herself an extra turn and attack buff if she lands crit on 2 units. Not as good of a cleaver for fodder farming as Grace, because of course this essentially is 2 turns of burst and there's no reset. But she does excel a lot better in things like Octo hunts, because she's able to do more damage and take down the minions around the hunt. So Ruri is definitely good. Shura, personally, I don't really like Shura as much. She is basically jack of all trades, master of none. Personally, that's what I feel. She is a bruiser that can output really, really good damage and built-in attack down on S3 and also resistance ignore S2. So you may think that, you know, the kit looks so great. Why do you not like her? I actually pulled Shura right away on the first banner, but she's been benched pretty much right ever since the initial release. It's just I never needed her, and there's always someone who does her job better and more specialized. But if you get her, you can use her for sure. She'll excel in pretty much any content you use her in, until much later on where there's just way better options. Next is Chihaya. So Chihaya is a free 4-star unit that is given to you from the Shura banner. Many of us consider Chihaya much better than Shura. So during the Shura banner, if you don't pull for Shura, you must at least farm enough event currencies to exchange for Chihaya. It's super important. So Chihaya's skill, basically to know that if she has good crit chance, she'll always cycle her skill through S3, S2, and then one single hit and she can apply S3, S2 again. Her S3 applies defense down and gains an extra turn if she crits, and her S2 extends all debuffs by 1 turn, and every time she crits, all her skill cooldowns decreases by 1. So you can see that by taking 2 turns, all your skill cooldown already decreased by 3 because of the 2 crits plus the extra turn mechanics. So Chihaya is amazing, and as an early member of the center team with Genga, they have insane synergy. Genga can open with S2. You don't even need Chihaya to be faster because sometimes speed tuning is an issue. So Genga can open with S2. Chihaya S3 applies defense down, and then S2 to extend all 3 shocks plus the defense down, that's 4 debuffs. And then Genga will go with an attack buff from Alice most likely into an S3, doing about 40 to 50k, nearly one-shotting Centaur. That's why Chihaya is so good. And the defense down and the debuff extension always will come in handy in raids later on as well. Next, in PvE, we have Roko. Roko is undoubtedly the best early game unit against bosses, hands down. Her corrosive mechanic, so she applies corrosive or poison, is enemy HP based, so it doesn't matter what her gear is, you just have to build her speedy and tanky, and she will eventually take the boss down. And because of her S2 gaining extra turn, the skill cycle and the cooldown management is again very good. So you S2, S3, S1, and then just cycle through that similarly to some of the other extra turn unit are like, and then you stack tons of poison. And Roko at 5-star will allow you to clear Harpist 9, which is one of the early mid-game goals, so you can start farming full set 6-star gears. But Roko is definitely S tier. I would even put her SS just because of how broken she is in the first week, but she'll fall off really fast. Milvis. Milvis is a rich man's or endgame fodder farmer because she ignores elemental disadvantage, so she only needs 85% crit for S2 to always crit. And then she also had an AoE defense down with stun on her S3, so in that sense her AoE capabilities is much stronger because the cooldown of S2 is also reset when the target is killed. So she can just turn on S2 for PvE, and she can fodder farm better than Grace or Ruri later on when she's built. But of course, due to the fact that she's a lot more gear dependent, and early game you won't have that many gear you need to get her with the high attack and also high crit damage, she's only S ranked for now. And then lastly, that's it for the SS and S tier. So we can switch now to the PvP ratings. So for PvP, we already talked about Alice and Sirius, so I'll just go over them briefly. Those two are the only units that are SS in terms of PvE and PvP rating, and you can see that's why we recommended both of those units as part of your normal reroll outside of the infinite reroll banners. And in terms of the PvP application, Alice initially, when paired with Timmy, will be able to just cleave everything mostly until everyone has really built stall teams or tank teams. But you open it with Timmy, you push everyone. Alice just needs to go second, push your cleaver, either Grace, Ruri, or Milvis, and that's it. They'll clean up. Sirius for PvP as SS because she essentially ensures someone dies unless they are fire type. But the S2 S3 opening combo kills everything except fire type again, and she has one of the highest base speed stat, so she can actually outspeed Timmy to pick off the enemy cleaver such as Ruri. So both of them are extremely strong in SS. And then in terms of the S rank, I'll just again go over them quickly. Morris, S rank because you can actually stall really hard with Morris. If you put her tanky enough with S2 S3 cycle, she just will not die. Just due to the fact that she will push herself 50% with S2, heal herself to full with S3, push herself again because S2 is off of cooldown. And unless you have a dedicated single target damage dealer, your cleavers are not going to be able to kill Morris, especially not Grace. Ruri maybe has a chance. And then Shura for PvP, initially she is very strong because she is a tank that can deal damage, and she can cleanse herself with S3, provide an attack down and defense buff. So Shura can deal with the Morris and prevent the infinite stall. But later on she'll fall off for sure until her unique equipment is released. And Hirin is a better Morris in terms of PvP healing. She has insane amount of action bar push with her S3 and S2, and her heal output is much higher as well. She doesn't skill cycle as nicely as Morris, but because she is a green unit, the typing works out much better than the Morris because everyone and their mother have water typing as their strongest unit. So part of the reroll guide is, for people who are PvP focused, you could technically go for Hirin in your infinite rerolls instead of Ginga if you know what you're doing, and then focus more on the PvP aspect. Ruri is the other S tier for PvP because she is a better cleaver versus Grace since she takes 2 turns because of S3 into S2, and the elemental advantageous S2 can help deal with some of the green units as well. So Ruri is definitely a strong pick. And lastly is Della. So Della is one of the earlier units that are core to a strong defensive team initially to counter the cleaves, because everyone again will be cleaving mostly with blue units, so Ruri or Grace, sometimes Melvis, which is fire type, so Della may have some issues there, but most of the time Della's kit will allow her to counterattack, and the counterattack along with the AoE counterattack that follows up is enough usually to one-shot a attack focused Ruri. And of course, she also has S3 as well to help with her AoE stun and damage. She's just very annoying to deal with once you get a full counter plus immunity set going for her. Until Nina comes out, there is just not a lot of choices to deal with Della once she is built up with a support like Hirin or Morris. So those are the SS and S tiers for the PvE as well as the PvP tier list on initial release. Hopefully this was informative. Again, everything is online. You can find the analysis here written by me and ZZ Fear as well. If you have any questions, you can find us on Discord, and I'll keep this updated hopefully. And when new characters get released, I'll have banner reviews and such to make sure you're always updated info wise for Artery gear.